Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Jade Dynasty Season 3 based on novel. So let's start. In the ancient and dense primitive forests, along with the wind came a horrible and burnt smell, like an ugly scar. Everywhere in the original exuberant forests, it carried the signs of destructions from the demon beast's rampage. Huge trees lying on the ground in disorder, numerous forest animals' corpses littered everywhere, the entire forest's tranquility had vanished. On the second day, after they discovered the crazy evil sect disciple, Xiao Yi Cai, Fa Xiong etc., the entourage of 7 good faction disciples, following along the gradually turning obvious demon beast's trail, approaching the valley hidden deep in the mountains. The forests that they passed by on their way replicated that scene, although human bones were not seen, but they were still disturbed by the scene. In many of their minds, even coincidentally at the same time, reflected, do those demon beasts really come to this world just to kill? This day at noon, the group of them appeared on that decrepit ancient path outside Venomous Serpent Valley. The area here showed such clear signs of the monster's destructions that they almost did not have to spend any effort to investigate. That path was widened from the stampede made by the demon beasts, giant footprints and sharp claw marks were everywhere. The air still carried a foul smell. Other than that, there seemed to be a faint unbearable stench, but nobody could tell what it was. Looking at the valley entrance, inside and outside was similarly in a mess. The forest and ground which was ravaged by that terrible flood was clearly visible, the ancient path meandered and twisted. Who would know in that valley, what is exactly there? For some reason, all of them looked a little nervous, caught in an awkward silence. In the end, Xiao Yi Cai coughed once, but then discovered that his own throat was dry and painful. He composed himself, said, "Everyone, it seems that the evil sect disciples did not speak a lie. It should be here." A big battle happened between the demon beasts and the evil sect. He looked around, hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Shall we go in and see?" No one spoke, even Li Zun's face looked pale. A moment later, Fa Xiong, who stood beside Xiao Yi Cai, quietly chanted, said, "Since we are here, we should no longer say to give up, let's go in." Actually everyone there knew that, just that for some reason, there seemed to be something strange in the valley, stealthy affecting everyone's moods, striking fear in their hearts. Fa Shan, who had always following his senior brother Fa Xiong, with a low, muffled voice acknowledged and walked over to his senior brother. "Let's go." The one who said this was not Xiao Yi Cai, but Lin Jingyu. His hand tightened over the Dragon Slayer sword and then his face solemn, took the lead into the valley. Following behind him was Lu Xueqi. Li Zun too immediately kept up. Xiao Yi Cai and Fa Xiong looked at each other, saw the worry in each other's eyes, but a moment later, everyone still went in. The vast valley, the boundless forest, the group walked along in the valley, surrounded by only a dead silence, not to mention animals, even the usual cries of birds were missing. The valley seemed to have become a lifeless evil spirit. The foul smell of the beasts was a strong, but as they went deeper, everyone started to frown tightly. Right now, following the mountain breeze, the other stench made one feel nauseous and turning thicker. The mountain road twisted and turned. The crowd was on high alert against their surroundings, slowly moving forward. In a corner ahead of them, there was a coal. When they arrived here, the stench in the air had reached an unbearable stage. Suddenly, Yan Hong, who was in the middle, suddenly dashed to the roadside. Everyone was startled. Li Zun exclaimed, "Junior sister, what happened to you?" He stopped halfway, because he and everyone saw Yan Hong standing on the weeds beside the path, vomiting hard. No one laughed, because nobody knew how long they could hold on, although the valley still had not revealed its true colors. But it seemed to be more terrible than most places on earth. Yan Hong panted and stopped, looking pale, walked back to everyone and whispered, "Sorry, I really." Fa Xiong forced a smile, said, "Yang junior sister, it doesn't matter." Xiao Yi Cai also said, "That's right, nobody can stand the smell too. You don't have to mind. If you don't feel up to it, why don't you first go out of the valley and wait for us?" Yan Hong hesitated a moment, but shook her head and said, "Let us go." Li Zun walked over, faced Yan Hong and nodded his head, a comforting look in his eyes, quietly said, "Take care of yourself, don't force yourself." Yan Hong nodded and promised. Xiao Yi Cai turned and said, "All right, let's continue on. We don't know what monster or danger lies ahead." everyone must be careful. All of them nodded and once again went forward. Lin Jingyu was still at the lead, approaching nearer to that coal. He held the Dragon Slayer sword in his hand, his palms started to sweat. By now the air was so thick with the stench smell that it was hard to breathe. Lin Jingyu's face turned slightly pale, clenched his teeth, strided across, passed around the corner of the coal, and saw the scene in the valley. His whole body instantly turned stiff. The group behind him immediately noticed his abnormal reaction, and could not help, but became nervous. Xiao Yicai quietly called Lin Jingyu twice, but he did not respond at all, only staring ahead. Lu Shuiqi was the second person to walk over, then Li Zun, Yan Hong, Xiao Yicai, Fa Xiong and Fa Shan. One by one they passed through the coal, saw the scene in the venomous Serpent Valley. Then, every one of them was stunned. That would probably be the legendary Azura Hell. Such a terrible scene appeared under the clear and bright blue sky. Countless bodies inside and outside that residence inside the valley. There were humans, also various demon beasts and monsters. Some were complete, but many more were limbs and miserable bodies, torn apart until it was unrecognizable, densely packed everywhere, almost to a point where gaps could not be seen. After composing himself with an effort and walking further into the valley, the scene became more tragic. Without even imagining, they could tell the battle was extremely tragic. Innumerable bodies and demon beasts' bodies entangled together. The land under their feet had all turned completely deep black. That was the color after being dyed with blood. Walking into that residence, inside and outside every room, entrances to critical tunnels, they could see the remnants of the tragic battle. In some places corpses piled high up, apparently to fight over this small entrance. The two parties advanced waves after waves, desperately fought, stepping over their comrades' bodies and wrestling tirelessly. In the courtyard, the group began to see a few demon beasts' bodies which were huge in size, some even bigger than the residents, but these once savage and ferocious beasts could only now lie quietly in this mortal hell, waiting to rot. The stink of the corpses in the air had reached a terrible degree, but the good faction disciples instead seemed better than before, because the tragic scene before them made them more indifferent to this stench. Just that, no one looked fine, no matter who it was. These people's countenance looked almost the same as the dead. They continued deeper into the residence, more bodies appeared before them, and now nobody knew just how many evil sect disciples and demon beasts died in this valley. They walked almost subconsciously in, walked. Every one of their faces were wooden, every one firmly held their own magical weapons, refused to relax even a little. After passing innumerable bodies, they came to a mourning hall. The reason they could tell it was a mourning hall, because they saw a coffin in this room, and in this room, the battle seemed to be the most intense here. Describing it as the bodies piling as high as a mountain did not seem exaggerating. It was also here, the group discovered many of the familiar evil sect bodies. Bai Duji, blood-sucking vampire, Elder Duanmu. These once all-powerful, invincible evil sect people, at the moment died with grievances hiding in this place. Many of them still had fear on their faces. Anyone could imagine, but nobody wished to, what kind of scene they witnessed before they died. As their investigation deepened, Xiao Yicai and the other slightly older ones in succession found even more famous evil sect figures, including God of Poison 3 disciples, many important figures from Hehuan sect. However, for Ghost King sect, although most of the dead disciples were wearing Ghost King sect uniforms, but very little of the well-known figures were found. Everyone slowly gathered to the front of the hall, saw each other's countenances. Xiao Yicai hoarsely said, "A lot of people died here. The important figures of evil sect are all here. Seems like all of Wan Du clan are dead." Yan Hong, who was beside, was deathly pale, said quietly, "It is the same over there. Many were dead from Hehuan sect. Even San Miao madam is too there." Lu Zueki's face was pale, her teeth clenched tightly together, her expression complicated. She looked like she could not bear, looked disgusted too, and for some reason, fearful. As the last person to join the group, she suddenly said, "Saw any of the Ghost King sect people?" Everyone shook their heads together and then was startled slightly. Li Zun, who was standing beside, looked even more terrible. Xiao Yicai glanced at him, spoke to Lu Shuiqi. "Many of the dead are Ghost King ordinary disciples, but seems like did not see well-known figures' bodies." Lu Zueki's expression relaxed slightly, but Li Zun's eyes suddenly glimmered, coldly said, "Xiao senior brother, have you forgotten that these beasts devour humans? On the way in, we saw many white bones. who knows those Ghost King sector Valders, would they have been? W.A. A cry interrupted Li Zun's words, but it was Yan Hong who could not bear it, ran to a corner and vomited again. Li Zun was startled for a moment, then sighed and stopped talking. Fa Xiong looked like he could not bear to, with Fa Shan together chanted quietly. All of them knew, although Li Zun's words were harsh, but the possibility was high. Xiao Yi Cai, Lin Jingyu and the rest had complicated expressions, slowly looked down. Only Lu Zueki's face was bleak, her pale face without a trace of color, even her body trembled involuntarily. But this delicate and cold woman did not look down, she slowly looked up to the sky. In that limitless clear sky, even the clouds above the valley looked blood-red. Lu Zueki's lips moved, looked as if she wanted to shout out something, but eventually not a sound. Qingyun Hill Tongqian Peak, Crystal Hall. What? With an incredulous cry, Reverend Dao Xian exclaimed, the three main evil sect branches after the battle with the demon beasts, the entire force annihilated. Standing below three people, who were the current good faction leaders, and with many seniors standing or sitting beside, Xiao Yi Cai, Fa Xiong, Lu Shueqi, and the rest of the good faction disciples who had returned to Qingyun Hill, did not speak. Only the lead Xiao Yi Cai affirmatively nodded, said, yes, teacher, the seven of us witnessed it ourselves. In the southwest venomous Serpent Valley corpses lay everywhere, too horrible to look at. The evil sect indeed suffered a heavy blow, including San Miao Madam and etc. He Huan sect, Wan Du clan. Many of the public figures, we have already found their corpses. Only the main figures from Ghost King sect were not found, but perhaps, because of the fact that the demon beasts devour humans so. Lu Shueqi, who was standing behind, turned pale again, as if this matter, and that tragic scene had been constantly on her mind, impossible to get rid of. However, in any case, right now she was able to control her own emotions and her face did not give much away. Others did not seem to notice anything. Only Shueyu Master, who was sitting in front of the crowd, this person who had brought up Lu Shueqi, noticed that the ice frost indifferent face of Lu Shueqi seemed to show some distress. Shueyu Master's brow wrinkled slightly, gently sighed, did not speak. At the moment the crowd in Crystal Hall was in a commotion, their voices getting louder and louder, looking at the faces of these good faction elites. Some were surprised, some fear, and many more had mixed expressions, delight and shock. Come to think of it, it is also true, the evil sect and good faction had been foes for unknown number of years. The good faction's several attempts to exterminate them were unsuccessful. Unexpectedly this time, they were wiped out by the demon beasts in one fell swoop. It was really a pleasant surprise. But since the evil sect was able to hold their own against the good faction, their forces naturally could not be underestimated, but they had such a tragic fate against the demon beasts. Those seated were not fools. Anyone could also infer, the next target of the demon beasts must be Qingyun Hill, where the world's good faction convened. And now the world's last hope, the good faction, would they be able to block this unprecedented catastrophe? Nobody's heart knew the answer. The three giant pillars of good faction, who were sitting at the forefront, Reverend Dao Xian, Pu Hong Master and Yun Yilan, after quietly discussing for a period, all were frowning. Then Reverend Dao Xian spoke some words. Pu Hong Master and Yun Yilan nodded their heads, indicating their agreement. Following which Reverend Dao Xian stood up, coughed once. The private discussions in Crystal Hall immediately toned down. Everyone looked towards Reverend Dao Xian. Reverend Dao Xian's face was solemn, until the crowd completely quietened down, in a heavy voice said, various fellow friends, everyone has heard the incident clearly just now. The evil sect has unexpectedly fallen. It is completely out of our expectations, but as for the details, whether there is still any of Valders who made it out of that battle, we still have to investigate thoroughly. However, right now that matter is not important anymore. His face grim, eyes glinting, not of anger but of power, solemnly said, various fellow cultivators, now that the catastrophe is right in front of us, the common people in misery, the demon beasts of Valders' might, is really unsettling. But we as the good faction people, there is no reason for us to retreat anymore. This matter is complicated. I and Pu Hong Master and Yun Valley Master wish to have a good discussion and then decide. Everyone also please go back first, take a good rest, the great battle most likely is near, at that time, for the common people, depends on everyone to give their best. The crowd nodded and answered. Reverend Dao Shuang revealed a trace of a smile. Pu Hong Master and Yun Yilan also stood up, walked to the rear rooms. Reverend Dao Xian, was about to follow along when suddenly he thought of something. Spoke to Xiao Yi Cai, you two come along, tell us again in detail about the situation. Xiao Yi Cai acknowledged, strided up, followed behind Reverend Dao Xian into the rear quarters. In the hall after these three revered elders left, immediately became bustling with noise and excitement. The crowd formed small groups, discussing spiritedly. Other than Xiao Yi Cai, who had followed Reverend Dao Xian in, the other 6 disciples who had went to the southwest, were all crowded around, the people speaking at the same time, inquiring about the details, at times exclaimed out, shook their heads, sighed etc. Various different kinds of expressions and sounds. And in the crowd, Lu Xueqi had remained silent, her eyes indifferent, but she seemed not to see those faces in front of her, instead staring at some distant place. Suddenly a stir went through the crowd and then a path was made out. Small Bamboo Valley head Shuyu Master walked in, Wen Minute and other beautiful Small Bamboo Valley female disciples followed along. Lu Xueqi recovered her senses, saw her teacher before her and staring at herself, her lips moved, quietly called out, Master. Then, lowered her head. Shuyu Master's face was expressionless, said, Sect Head Reverend is discussing with the other seniors on this matter. There will not be any other matters here for the time being. You will follow me back to Small Bamboo Valley first. Lu Xueqi nodded, whispered, yes. Shuyu Master, ignoring the rest, headed first out of the crystal hall, Lu Xueqi following. Qingyun faction's heads' reputations were not trivial. The other good faction members mostly were very respectful of her, all made way to let out a path. Looking at Lu Xueqi about to follow her teacher out of the hall, Li Zun, who was standing at her side, had a trace of anxiety on his face, stepped 1 foot out, and was about to say something when suddenly a silhouette blocked in front of him. Li Zun was taken aback, and upon closer look, it was Shuyu Master's eldest disciple, Wen Minute. Wen Minute smiled and said, Li senior brother, Xueqi junior sister must be very tired from her travel, better let her have a good rest. And this time, she was away for quite some time, my teacher must have a lot to say to her. Li Zun glanced at Wen Minute a few times, a disappointed look on his face, but eventually still stepped back, said, all right, but like to request Wen Minute's senior sister to please take good care of. Before Li Zun could finish, Wen Minute smiled and said, Li senior brother, please be assured, Xueqi and I are same-sex sisters, we are closer than real siblings. What must be done or said, I will naturally do and say. Li Zun's face reddened, nodded his head and no longer spoke, retreated to the side. Wen Minute with a few other female disciples also walked out of the hall. Very soon, Qingyun Hill's Small Bamboo Peak group of people had already disappeared before the people's sights. Along the way they rode the clouds and mounted the mist, from Tongqian Peak back to Small Bamboo Valley. After Shuyu Master landed, her face aloof, did not speak to anyone and walked directly to the Small Bamboo Valley Hall. The group respectfully stood at where they were, watching their teacher. Until their teacher's figure disappeared into the building, Lu Xueqi's eyes looked lost, standing motionless at where she was, until Wen Minute patted her shoulder. Wen Minute's eyes carried a trace of worry, whispered, Junior sister, what happened to you? Look at how lost you are, and didn't respond even calling you a few times. Lu Xueqi was startled for a moment, a trace of a smile forced out, said, I'm sorry, senior sister. Wen Minute shook her head, said, why are you saying sorry to me? We are all sisters, don't have to be so formal. Oh right, I noticed something off with teacher's expression. I will go to take a look at her. You two had a long journey, go back first to take a good rest. Lu Xueqi was silent for a moment, quietly said, I'm afraid teacher is still mad at me. Wen Minute looked at this most beautiful and most talented junior sister of the same faction, suddenly felt that on her pale face, although still as beautiful, but looking thinner and pallid than before. Wen Minute sighed in her heart, hugged Lu Xueqi's shoulder, softly said, silly girl, don't think foolish thoughts. How teacher has always treated you, we and you yourself know it. It will be all right. I will go take a look now. Lu Xueqi silently nodded. Wen Minute smiled, left some instructions with the other junior sisters, and was about to leave when a girl walked out from the door ahead. It was that young girl Xiaoxia, on the night where Ghostly had secretly sneaked up to Small Bamboo Valley. Because of her young age and meager cultivation, therefore she had always stayed on Small Bamboo Valley. Shuyu Master found her intelligent and lovely and so kept her around her. Xiaosha glanced over their direction, with quick steps walked over to Wenminute and Lu Xueqi. Wenminute with a eye until Xiaosha reached them, said, Xiaosha, why did you come out? Didn't teacher just returned? You should go wait on her. Xiaosha nodded, glanced at Lu Xueqi, said, big senior sister, various senior sisters, teacher wants me to come over and ask Xueqi's senior sister to go to quiet bamboo pavilion to see her. Wenminute was surprised, turned back to look Lu Xueqi. Lu Xueqi's lips moved, a complex expression passed her eyes and then said, all right, I will go now. After speaking, she walked straight ahead and soon disappeared into the buildings. Wenminute looked while Lu Xueqi left, brows frowning, spoke to Xiaosha. Xiaosha, did teacher say anything else? Why did she ask Xueqi to go over? Xiaosha shook her head, nope, after teacher came back. She kept to herself. After a while she told me to ask Xueqi's senior sister to see her. Wenminute with a for the moment also could not deduce the reason, shook her head, spoke to the other junior sisters, all right, it seems like there is no other matters, all of you go back first and rest. The group of women acknowledged and started to leave. Wenminute glanced towards the direction that Lu Xueqi left, felt a heavy feeling in her heart, for a moment a mix of emotions welled in her heart. Quiet Bamboo Pavilion was located at a secluded area of the small Bamboo Valley's buildings, near the rear of the mountain, surrounded by verdant tears of bamboo. When the mountain breeze blew from time to time, the bamboo leaves gently shook, giving one a meditative feeling. Xueyu Master liked to come here, staying by herself, therefore the other small Bamboo Valley disciples were very familiar with this place. Lu Xueqi walked past the corridor, stepped onto the path made out of smooth small stones in the bamboo forest, meandering along the way, deep into the bamboo forest, soon arrived at the fine house made from bamboo. From the outside it looked simple, the outer walls made from beads, experienced countless of storms and time, right now had a faint mark of age. On both sides of the house, the small windows were opened and indistinctly could see the meditating silhouette of Xueyu Master. Lu Xueqi walked to the door, at the same time using the door made out of bamboo as a cover. For some reason, she felt a little nervous and inhaled deeply once, said, Teacher, I am Xueqi, did you call me? Xueyu Master's voice was heard from the house, calm and emotionless, yes, come in. Lu Xueqi bestirred herself, pushed the door and went in. The furnishings in the room were very simple, table and chairs and tea sets, a desk beside the window, paper, ink pen and ink on it. Xueyu Master was a person who did not like luxury. Right now she was sitting before the desk, quietly watching the bamboo forest outside the window. Lu Xueqi walked to her back, watching Xueyu Master's back figure, quietly said, Teacher. Xueyu Master unhurriedly turned around and looked at Lu Xueqi. Lu Xueqi seemed unwilling to meet her teacher's eyes and lowered her head down. Teacher and disciple, both of them, nobody spoke. The atmosphere in the room turned somehow awkward. Actually, Xueyu Master and Lu Xueqi were both people not with many words. This kind of situation had also happened when they were alone together, but somehow, this time today, between the teacher and her disciple, there seemed to have another strange unfamiliar feeling, distancing each other further than before. After a while, Xueyu Master broke the silence. Her voice calmly asked, This time you went to the southwest, along the way was it smooth sailing? Lu Xueqi nodded her head and said, It was still all right. Along the way the demon beasts were rampant, but we all tried our best to avoid them and finally found a crazed evil sect disciple, which we then found the venomous Serpent Valley, saw. Her voice suddenly stopped, a trace of visible pain flashed past her face, even her body also seemed to tremble. Xueyu Master looked at Lu Xueqi, her eyes glimmering, as if she was contemplating something. After a moment, she looked at Lu Xueqi, said, Have you seen him? Lu Xueqi was stunned, looked at her teacher, Xueyu Master, although her expression was calm, but she seemed to have seen through to her heart. Lu Xueqi's expression changed, quietly said, Teacher, what are you saying? Xueyu Master coldly said, I am referring to Zhong Xiaofan, who is also the current Ghost Li in Ghost King sect. Xueyu Master's voice was not loud, but to Lu Xueqi, it was as if a thunder beside her ear. She abruptly lifted her head up, her face pale, but the bright stare of her teacher standing before her was still staring at her eyes. Lu Xueqi's lips opened and closed tightly together, did not speak a word. Silence once again descended. Time passed, Shueyu Master's expression also slowly relaxed. Her eyes while looking at Lu Xueqi also gradually had pity and pained expressions. Chia, how long are you going to lie to me? Shueyu Master looked at Lu Xueqi, slowly said. Lu Xueqi's hands clenched tightly into a fist. The fair skin due to the force exerted turned white around the joints. It was clear at this moment, she was also extremely agitated. Just that looking at her mentor, who had brought her up, her eyes gradually misted, but in the end she with an effort held it back, clenched her teeth. She slowly kneeled down before Shueyu Master. It is disciples' fault, let down teacher's teachings. Her voice became smaller and smaller, her delicate back also seemed to be gently trembling. Shueyu Master heaved a long sigh, her eyes full of vicissitudes of life, as if from this disciple, she recalled back her past, even her own expression also had grief. She slowly turned and walked to the window, looking out to the green bamboos, swaying in the wind, just that person, would he still remember this place? You can get up. Shueyu Master faintly said. There was no movement behind her, apparently Lu Xueqi was still kneeling on the ground. Shueyu Master did not insist further, said, Chia, you have been extremely bright. Some things I thought even if I do not say it out, you should know. Lu Xueqi kneeling behind her, was motionless. Shueyu Master continued, you being entangled with that Zhong Xiaofan, for you, this is still a ill-fated relationship, do you know? Lu Xueqi quietly acknowledged, her voice almost indiscernible, said, yes. Shueyu Master unhurriedly said, moreover Zhong Xiaofan has already betrayed the good faction, devouring blood and turning evil, this decade his actions. I do not have to say more on this to you. To tell you the truth, between you and him, right now has become the talk of the town, even your sect head teacher Uncle Dao Xian also knows about it. Just that those elders firstly considered you young and ignorance, secondly your aptitude, intelligence, and hard game cultivation, again gave you another chance. You must not continue to obstinately persist in the wrong way. Towards the end, Shueyu Master's voice gradually turned urgent and harsher. Lu Xueqi's face turned paler, but for some reason, her body stopped trembling. Shueyu Master's face slowly softened, turned and helped Lu Xueqi up, gently said, Chia, you are my most beloved disciple, in the branch, even among the entire 7 branches younger generation of disciples, you have the highest aptitude of cultivation Dao, your future has boundless prospect. I have very high expectation of you, you know. Lu Xueqi whispered, yes, teacher. Shueyu Master looked at her, said, with your aptitude, in the future the leader of Small Bamboo Valley, naturally would be you. At that time you would be revered by thousands, meditating and comprehending Tao. As such, isn't it what you have dreamt of in the past? Lu Xueqi was silent, only bowing slightly. On her beautiful face, other than her pale complexion, was the glint in her bright eyes slowly changing, the misted eyes had already disappeared. Shueyu Master sighed, said, go back and think about it carefully. Lu Xueqi stood before her but did not immediately turn to leave, instead slowly looked up and looked at her benevolent teacher, who had raised her up. What is it, Chia? Shueyu Master asked. Teacher, Lu Xueqi slowly called out, said, I have let you down. Shueyu Master shook her head and sighed, said, what silly words are you saying? Lu Xueqi looked strange. A trace of agitation appeared on her usually indifferent face, even her breathing quickened. Shueyu Master very quickly noticed that, frowned and looked at her, said, what is it, Chia? Lu Xueqi, as if turbulent waves were set off in her heart, therefore making the expressions on her face changed, but finally, facing Shueyu Master, she quietly said, teacher, you're right. I am really muddle-headed, Zhong Xiaofan and I knew too, this is an ill-fated impossible relationship. A trace of regret flashed past Shueyu Master's eyes. She gently said, Chia, return to the shore. As long as you sever the emotions, there is nothing great, at least, you still have teacher and Small Bamboo Valley, and Qingyun sect which could still accept you. Lu Xueqi abruptly looked up, the speed astonishing, on her elegant and beautiful face, was full of pain and sadness, even her voice was quivering, teacher, but I am unable to sever. Shueyu Master's face changed, stared intently at Lu Xueqi. Suddenly her hand raised and fell, parved a sound, giving Lu Xueqi a slap heavily. Lu Xueqi did not avoid it and did not step back. Standing where she was motionless, she only bit her lips tightly, her body slowly trembling. What did you say? Shueyu Master's voice seemed to be also quivering, but her words were filled with anger. You this traitorous disciple, do you know what you're talking about? Lu Zueki's face had long turned white, with not a trace of color, but she still met the eyes of Shueyu Master, as if determinedly said, Teacher, you have adopted me since young, raised me up and taught me, my gratitude is deep beyond. Xueqi is unfilial, made benevolent teacher to be so angry and upset, deserved to die. Her white clothes fluttered, once again kneeled in front of her teacher, said, Xueqi rather die and would not dare to betray benevolent teacher and good faction. If in the future I meet that Zhong Xiaofan again, disciple will do my best and take his life with Tianhua's sword. If unsuccessful, then disciple will just die by his hands. Shueyu Master started to look enraged, but after hearing Lu Zueki's words, she then slowly calmed down, but the following words made her face changed again. Lu Xueqi kneeled in front of her, breathed deeply, her eyes looking away, at the ground before her, as if into her own heart, slowly said, but this ill-fated sinful love, disciple is unable to cut it off, no longer able to sever. The room instantly turned deathly silent, as if even their breathings also paused. A moment later, Shueyu Master's sharp stern loud scolding was heard, resounded in this house. You this traitorous disciple, you get out, I never want to see you again. Part 1 end here.